Let's begin.
Hey there, scary story fanatics. Welcome back to Cleaving Thought from Bone with your host, Sociopathic. Tonight, we begin a journey that spans 4 episodes long, a tale that may influence some of what you think you already know. So, if you're up for a wild summer ride, settle in for part 1 of a 4-part miniseries, The Chronicles of Shyloh, the Untold Story, the Absconsion.
Shyloh finished polishing her combat shotgun and placed it back on the rack next to her 2 rifles, above the cabinet that contained 6 pistols, a box of grenades, and more than a few cases of ammunition. Shyloh pulled the large hunting knife from her belt, holster and all, and set it atop the workbench in this small bunker-like structure that she had cobbled together mostly herself. As she did, she tried to distance herself from her thoughts, but she couldn't. Those thoughts were the reason that she lived the way that she did, why she engaged in dangerous activities that she frequently found herself in, and rarely had a moment's rest. If not for nothing else, she would never let herself rest. Too many people had died at her side, trying to save her life. And for what? At first, when she and Raybob had finally put an end to the curse at Locust Lake, it almost seemed worth it. Losing her friends, her family, Ben. Almost worth it. Almost. She would rather have let the curse endure and have them all back in return, but even at the great cost that she paid, that she could never get back, she at least found value in that the curse on Locust Lake was finally over. And it was, for a long time. And though she never let her guard down, Shyloh retained a spark of hope that, in the end, things would work out how they should. Everything changed when she got that final call from Raybob, the one that she had returned, and heard his brutal death at the hands of the monsters that they were supposed to have destroyed. She returned to finish what she had started, to reclaim the reward she received after everyone had sacrificed so much for her. She recruited some of the toughest people that she could find and returned to Locust Lake to avenge Raybob and end the curse, this time for good. However, in the end, the group of over 10 people was slaughtered at the hands of the darkness that had returned to the land, and Shyloh was the only survivor. Again. Shyloh left the lake and land in defeat, not understanding of why she was always the one to survive, especially if she was no one special, not the one to end the curse. She felt like everyone bet their lives on the wrong horse. Her, and she alone, let all of them down, their sacrifices in vain. Shyloh vowed to never return to Locust Lake ever again, not in fear of her own life, but in fear of causing the death of more innocents, unable to prevent it. Shyloh let out a sigh, turned, and left the small shed behind her home. She turned and shut the door, locking it tight with a thick chain. She knew that soon, the thing that she was looking for would rear its head again, leaving police baffled by the carnage in its wake, and this time, she would be ready. Shyloh may have refused to return to the source of darkness that plagued her every waking breath, but she was by no means a victim or a quitter. It had been years since she had been to the endless mountain region of the Northeast and her hometown, but she never forgot what happened there. She knew that evil, true evil, was really out there, and ever since the day she first left, all those years ago, Shyloh made sure that she would be ready to confront it head on when the time came. And the time did come. Time and time again, in fact. Shyloh reminisced about all she'd been through since leaving the cursed lake behind her. Shyloh not only prepared for evil, she sought it out, hunting down foul creatures of the night based on leads collected while moving from town to town. Most people took their urban myths for nothing more than local superstition. But Shyloh knew better. Shyloh had faced off against werewolves, a strange creature with spiky protrusions jutting from its elbows, and even tracked down a chupacabra once while down south. But Shyloh knew these things were child's play compared to that which took her friends and took her parents. Shyloh hopped into the driver's side of the truck, turning the key and the engine over. As she pulled away, she looked off to the horizon, northeast to be precise, and in the direction of Locust Lake. It was hundreds of miles away, but even now, after all this time, she still felt its presence, and even now it still threatened to consume her. She hated times like this, quiet and alone, left with nothing but her own thoughts. She was off to get groceries, but what she craved was more danger to hone her skills, more thrills to drown out the ghosts of her past that haunted her mind still. Little did she know that she would get exactly what she internally asked for. Shyloh drove down a long and desolate road, as far off the beaten path as it was flat and straight. She could see for miles in front of her, and the place that she was headed to was over 30 minutes away. However, after only 10, she spied a group of vehicles with flashing lights atop each one. Shyloh prepared to stop, making sure to stop at least a decent distance away so she could grab the badge that she had crafted for herself to help her falsely identify herself as a local law enforcement, forest ranger to be precise. Granted, it wouldn't gain her access to every detail the officers and detectives were able to glean from the evidence, but it usually gave her the ability to access the crime scene and survey the evidence firsthand. Law officials typically got it wrong anyway. Most people don't realize how many murders go unsolved, with only about 15% ending with a conviction. Of the remaining 85% unsolved homicides, normal people, as Shyloh thought of them, would be shocked to learn of how many of those were actually the work of things lurking in the dark, in the shadows of society, hiding their numbers by making deaths look like suicides, disappearances, or flat out leaving no evidence behind it all. Shyloh got out of her truck, blonde hair wisping in the breeze behind her. The sunglasses she wore made her look tough, but her stiff upper lip and unwavering expression made this small woman look even tougher. Even those that didn't know her could tell that this woman was forged by deep trauma, hardened like iron. Shyloh walked the crime scene. The parents crying and talking to the Special Victims Unit. They had found their little girl dead. But she wasn't just dead. What those poor people discovered were sure to haunt their dreams for the rest of their lives, she reasoned, because the image of what she was looking at would be etched into her memory forever as well. This child was only 5 years old, and she was mutilated beyond recognition. The blood spatters that painted the dirt of the backyard indicated that she was very much alive when the small girl was taken apart. She had muscle tissue from both legs, the calves specifically, her right foot and left toes missing. As for the girl's right arm, it appeared to have been ripped out and off at the shoulder socket. But despite all this, it was the girl's face that disturbed Shyloh the most. One of the girl's eyes had been gouged out and dangled loose at her cheek, and her face was twisted into an awful expression that screamed both agony and terror at the same time. And there was so much blood. But Shyloh knew that for all the damage done, that there should have been more. The ground should have been saturated in it. So she looked closer, and on the left side, just under the girl's jawline, Shyloh found that she was right. Shyloh stood to her feet and thanked the detective for allowing her to check the scene, saying that she did indeed believe that it was an animal attack. But that was a lie. In fact, she was only getting close enough to shake his hand for just one reason: to eye the object being placed into the evidence bag behind him. The detective thanked the woman that he only knew as Ranger Palmer, the fake name that Shyloh had given him, and she thanked him as well. She smiled as she walked back to her truck. She knew exactly what she was dealing with, and exactly where to find it. Shyloh drove down the road, foregoing dinner, heading back to her place instead. She'd seen this before. Vampires typically hide their kills. Sure, they drink blood, but they make sure to not drain the body. As far as the puncture marks on the necks, they either mutilate the corpse or simply tear the whole neck out if interrupted and in a hurry. These tactics, of course, help to throw off people like Shyloh from their trail. She knew there were others like her out there, but there weren't many. The monsters of the world outnumbered them thousands to one. But still, this never stopped her from doing what she could to keep the darkness at bay. People like that family deserve justice, and she was here to make sure that it was delivered. She'd been hunting this nest of vamps for weeks. They were a whole extended nuclear family clan, complete with siblings and all. They roamed the plains of the Midwest, where human life is random and desolate, feeding carefully and methodically, doing their best to hide. But they all made a fatal flaw. See, some houses, even now, have a signet, like a family crest. Some modern American homes still boast these, but all vampire nests do as well. Someone at the scene had dropped a cufflink, one of that girl's brutal killers, and on it was a crest that Shyloh recognized. And following this nest, she would venture out in daylight and survey the surrounding region, taking note of anything that could prove useful, including the unassuming family crests that hung on some homes' mailboxes or awnings, and she mapped each one. Shyloh pulled into her driveway and headed straight for where she kept that map and the rest of her notes. She knew where they were, and she knew that she had to hurry. That girl's 6-year-old sister was not found at the scene, and Shyloh knew that she didn't have much time.
Well, if the lessons of the lake serve Shyloh well, she'll see her mission through. Let's just hope all the tragedy doesn't follow her as well. But I sure hope that you follow your horror noses back here again next weekend. And until then, make sure to like, share, subscribe, and turn on notifications so I can catch you all again next Saturday.
Social media can be very unpredictable, especially regarding horror content. If this content gets removed, all new content will be simultaneously presented on various websites provided in the description to this video. Make sure to follow me in other digital spaces so that you never miss out on the terror. Also, if you like this video, make sure to leave a comment and hit the like button. It helps the channel a lot. If you're new to the channel and you enjoy what's here, consider hitting that subscribe button and the notification bell so that you never miss an upload. Writing is a dream of mine, and it's all of you that make that dream come true.